What's up, guys? It is Brandon, and today I'm going to bring you something a little bit out of the ordinary from what we usually do on our channel. Basically, I'm going to start doing a series on top of the gaming series. I'm going to start doing a series on tutorials for 3ds Max. If you don't know what that is, it is basically a way of animating 3D models and stuff like that. It's really cool. I've been into 3D animation for 4 years, and I do it a lot. I love it. It's really fun to do, especially like in spare time, whatever. You can do whatever you want. So yeah, today I think my first episode, just because I love it so much, is going to be on how to use cloth, how to simulate cloth. Since this is a tutorial probably for beginners, this is going to be very simple. There's nothing going to be very complicated about any of it. We're not going to go into anything detailed, really. But yeah, so basically this is a scene I set up in like less than a minute. Just kind of simple cloth simulation here. You can see gravity. It reacts with the floor and the cylinder that it lands on. And yeah, so I'm going to basically show you guys how to do something like this. And yeah, alright, so let's get started. Alright, so I think before I show you guys how to do the actual cloth simulation, I should show you guys the difference between using a standard primitive object, such as a plane, a box, and all that, versus using a spline, which are hollow, they're not solid objects. Basically, when you create cloth using an object like a plane, in order to get higher quality out of your object, you have to increase the segments in it to get more realism. I'm sure you can understand why. The more bends and areas it can have. Whereas with a rectangle and other objects like that, a circle, which we'll be using, you can use what's called the garment maker modifier. And basically this modifier instantly adds a bunch of triangles, as you can see here, to your plane or any other, or not plane, rectangle, or any other spline. And then here you can change the density. Just going up, it adds a ton more triangles, and triangle is also a better shape when using cloth because of the way it bends and stuff. And so yeah, I recommend that if you use cloth, especially with a simple shape like a rectangle or a circle, definitely recommend you use garment maker. Just make sure that you don't raise the density of this too much, because if you raise it too high, the amount of polygons on here can freeze your 3ds Max or crash the program. So yeah, I recommend that you guys use garment maker. So yeah, just a little tip before you start doing this. Yeah. Alright, so to start off our scene, we're just going to make a simple little setup here, just something that's for your cloth to kind of react with, just to give you an idea of how cloth works. I just did a simple 1x1 segment plane, and I'm going to draw out a cylinder, just a simple cylinder. You don't need to add very much to it. I mean, you can increase the sides to give it more of a smoothness around it, but that's not really that necessary. And then just take down all the segments. You really don't need all of the height segments and stuff like that. That's not really necessary. It's just kind of a waste of polygons just for this. And then what we're going to do here, like I told you a minute ago, we're going to draw a circle just so it matches the shape of our cylinder. And then we're just going to go ahead and move this to the center. Just right click the arrows down here to move it perfectly centered. And then we're just going to lift that right up above the cylinder right here. As you can see, it's above the cylinder. That way it has space for it to drop onto it. And now what we're going to do is, like I showed you, we're going to go up to the modifiers tab right here, click on the drop down bar, and type in G. And that, I don't know if it works for everybody else, but for me it takes me straight to garment maker. And you click garment maker, and then what it does is it creates a bunch of triangles, polygons, and then you just want to increase this a couple times if you're not happy with the amount. Of course, if you like the amount that you have, then you can always keep it, but for me, I like to make it as realistic as possible, so I'm just going to increase this up to 5. Alright, so now that we've raised this to 5 and we have a good amount of polygons, we're happy with it. All we have to do now is go up to, or click on the drop down bar and find cloth right here and click it. And basically what this does is adds the cloth modifier to your circle. And then what we're going to do here is click on object properties, and then this little panel will come up, and basically what's going to happen here is it'll show you all the objects that are going to be included in your simulation, whether it be acting as cloth or acting as a collision object, which we'll talk to about in a minute. So first we're going to select our circle here, and we're going to make sure we check cloth, because that's telling the program that your circle here is a piece of cloth. And then if you don't feel like messing with it and creating your own custom sets for your cloth, you can always click on this drop down bar here, and it has a pretty good choice of different types of cloth. I think personally I'm just going to choose cotton right now. So we click cotton, and basically now it's set with a bunch of presets that basically make it act as a realistic cotton fabric. Alright, so now that we've done that, what we want to do is click on Add Objects. And Add Objects is going to open up all the objects in your scene. And since we want both of our floor and our cylinder to both react with the cloth, we're going to click both of those, and then we're going to click Add. Alright, so now that they're on listed as an object in our simulation, we're going to go down here where it says Collision Object and click that. That's basically telling it that you want the cloth to collide with this object. And then here we're going to change the offset, if you want to, of course. Basically what offset does is it puts a little bit of space between the object it's colliding with, just so it allows for better collision. It doesn't like break sides or anything, which I'll show you right now, which it should work. So I'll click here, and I just went to 0.6, so I went down. And if I simulate this now, just click simulate right there, it'll fall, and as you can see right there, it breaks through because of how close the offset is for that. And obviously that's no good, so we're going to go ahead and click Erase Simulation here, which erased the simulation that you just did so you can restart. So we click Erase Simulation, and then we go back up to Object Properties, select our two objects again, and we're just going to raise the offset right here to about 1.8, I think should be pretty good. And then we're just going to click Simulate again, and just let that simulate. And that's still not enough. It will probably fix itself, but I prefer just to be fine right off the bat. So we'll go here and we'll raise the offset again to about 2.6 and let it simulate. And that's good. See, as you can see, now the cloth isn't being torn, I guess you could say, by the cylinder. And you can see it's falling with realistic gravity, and it is colliding with the cylinder, and in a second it should collide with the floor. And oh, it's just a little bit too short, but yeah, it collides with the floor. I'll show you that in a second. So as you can see there, it just fell, and pretty realistically it looks pretty good. I like that. I guess I'll talk about this too really quick. Basically, these two here, simulate local and simulate local damped, simulate your cloth without using your timeline, without like keyframing it. So if you have an animation that's going to happen, but you want to have your cloth in a set position before the animation happens, what you're going to do is click simulate local or simulate local damped. I personally don't know the difference really. I think simulate local damped may be a little bit more realistic or more dead on than simulate local. As you can see, it's a little bit more slow. It calculates a lot more. So we're just going to let that run through. Alright, so I'll just stop it there. There's really no point in going all the way down, but as you can see, it does look a bit more calculated. Sorry about that. It does seem to be a lot more realistic looking. And yeah, so now that I've done that, I'm going to reset the state, and basically that just sets your object back to its initial state before you started simulating local or simulating. And I'm just going to re-simulate this, and once it's done simulating, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys one effect that you can do on cloth to give it more of a realistic dynamic feel. So I'll let this finish simulating and I'll do that. Alright, so what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to re-simulate the local, and then I'm going to come back on when it's done simulating and I'll show you guys a cool effect that you can do to give your cloth more of a dynamic feel if you're doing an animation with it. And so yeah, I'll cut back in when that's finished. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and stop it right there. And alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to head over to Create again, where we got our circle. And we're going to go head over here to Space Warps. And we're going to go ahead and click this that says Wind. And we're just going to drag that out anywhere on our grid thing. And we're just going to rotate that about 90 degrees. It doesn't really matter, it doesn't have to be exact. Really any direction if you want. And then you're going to drag this up and back. And so basically what this does is it adds a wind, obviously, you can tell by the name. And I'll show you how we're going to use that with our cloth to make it look good, or more dynamic, I guess you could say. So anyway, I have my cloth here. And what we're going to do now is we're going to animate the wind changing. So we're going to go ahead and click Auto key, and we're going to just mess with the strength, increase the strength, go down a little bit more, lower the strength some, go up some, increase the strength, and increase the strength a little bit more. Obviously this is just random, you can do it whatever way you want. And that just basically increases the strength of the wind that's going to be pushing your cloth. So we're going to go back to 7. Obviously yours is probably at 1. I didn't totally get rid of my simulation, so that's why I did it at 7. But so now that we're here, we're going to go ahead and click our cloth again, and what we're going to do now is click Cloth Forces. When we click that button, it'll come up with every force in our scene, and since the only one we have in our scene right now is wind, we're going to click Wind, and we're going to click this arrow which will move it over and basically tell the simulation that this is now going to be what the cloth is also going to be reacting with. So we're going to click that and we're going to click OK. And basically now when we simulate, what it's basically going to do is it's going to take the wind in effect and animate. I'm going to go ahead and pause this here and wait because it's going to take a second to simulate, so I'll be back in when this is done. Alright guys, so I just decided to go back and fix my simulate local so it's at 0. And so now I'm going to go ahead and click simulate, and as you can see here, as it simulates, it is simulating the wind pushing the cloth in that direction that the arrow is facing, and it is giving it a more dynamic feel as if the wind is really pushing the cloth. And there you can see how I made the wind die down. The cloth kind of falls back some, and then somewhere around here it should pick up again like that, and then it gets bigger and bigger, and I think it just continues to get larger until it hits 100. And so yeah, as you can see there, it has that nice, like it's being pushed by the wind. If I scroll back and play through this again, you can see obviously it doesn't look that great because of the fact that this is a very short timeline and I didn't have as much time to simulate. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure you get the gist of it. It's pretty cool to do. I love playing with cloth. There's a lot of things you can do with it. And so yeah, if you have any questions other than what I've explained, go ahead and leave them in the comments section, and I will do my best to answer them. And if you have any ideas or anything you would like to learn in another tutorial, leave it in the comments, and I will get to it as soon as I can. And yeah, thanks for watching.